Well, hello everyone. This is John Lamb and Kelli Stewart. Got here last night from Bozeman, Montana. Kelli's from right here near Portland, and we got you an update that we want to go over with you on the Ryan Payne sentencing today. So we'll give a few minutes here for people to join us. I did, as people are coming on, I did get the 91 pages here that we're going to talk about more tonight with Ammon Bundy. But these 91 pages are some transcripts, or sort of like 302 reports from an FBI agent that confiscated this stuff supposedly from someone who saved all this on their Gary Hunt saved them on a Dropbox type thing. And all these conversations today were used against Ryan Payne here in court. So Ryan Payne got more time than anyone else yet in this trial, and we'll talk about this here in just a moment. It was, he's not getting out the day. He's got more time to serve, and she's even holding the Nevada thing against him. I made several notes today about some of this stuff. She made references to his smile when he hugged Ammon Bundy or hugged John Richtheimer, how he smiled and the look on his face.
Like thumbing the nose.
Looked like a thumb in the nose at the federal government, or him taking pictures down in the wash. This last 4 years from the Bundy Ranch till now has been Ryan Payne's life. It's his whole thing. He went there to stand up for other people's misfortune that the government was abusing them on. Kelli was there the whole time. There's a little bit of traffic here. Kelli was in the courtroom longer than I was today. I was running late, but I'll let her tell you some of what she heard before I even made it into the courtroom.
You know, the beginning of the hearing is typically how it normally goes for us, where it's going really well and we're hearing so much information, we just know that the judge is going to have mercy. They had two witnesses called up on behalf of Ryan Payne, and one was a psychiatrist, who had, has all her degrees and is licensed in Washington and Oregon, and spent time with Ryan Payne shortly after his arrest in March of 2016. Also spent time with him this year, and gave an incredible analysis of Ryan Payne. In fact, it just felt almost violating how much information she revealed to the court, but it really showed the core of who Ryan Payne is, and she actually went into much of his military background, what he did for our country. Our country made him, and I might say things that offend some of you today, and I'm sorry if it does, but our country made him a trained killer. He is a murderer in other countries' eyes, and that is what our country trained him to do. They also trained him to run special operations. They trained him to teach and to train others in combat, how to keep themselves alive. She went through how there was one point in his military training, his military time in Iraq. He served 2 tours in Iraq at the age of 17, enlisted in the military. And there was one point where he was left for 24 hours under constant fire with his unit, and his superiors did not come in and get them. And for 24 hours, every one of them thought they were going to die. I do not know in that instance how many of them died, but Ryan has spoken about his brothers who died in Iraq that he was very close with. So this psychologist went through incredibly well, did a wonderful analysis of Ryan Payne. And every bit of it came to the conclusion that Ryan Payne is not a threat to the public. Ryan Payne wants to defend and protect and serve. Before he actually ended up in the military, he wanted to be a part of the FBI or the CIA. He wanted to serve his country. He wanted to protect his fellow countrymen. Everything she said helped us to understand more of why Ryan Payne said and did some of the things he did before the occupation in this 91-page document that we have had released this week. It painted a very clear picture of who he is, why he said what he did, and everything he said and everything he did is because that is who our United States government trains him to be. And had he occupied a refuge type scenario in Iraq, he would have received even more medals than he received in the 2 tours that he was gone. One of which, one medal I wrote down that I thought was interesting, he received 2 medals on the global war on terrorism. which is so ironic because then he comes to the United States, he thinks he's defending and protecting the Hammonds, and being really psyched up by informants, helping him to have his post-traumatic stress syndrome triggered and get him in this military mindset, and then now he's seen by the public as a domestic terrorist.
One thing that he knew, it came out in court today, he knew what his government was capable of, how his government had been killers over in Iraq, and how he had done even some of these horrendous things to other countries himself. He went to the Bundy Ranch not to take lives, but to protect, and to the same way with the Hammonds. He went to protect them against the same government that trained him to kill and murder people in other countries.
In fact, he said that he was coming and doing the things he did here after his time in Iraq because he was trained in the military to take people's liberties away. But now back on U.S. soil, he was determined that he would instead protect people's liberties and no longer be the threat that his government created him to be. And for those very things that he was created to do are what he was literally persecuted for in this courtroom today. In fact, they said he was the most culpable of this entire thing because he used his training from the military to train individuals to create guard duty rotations, do the shooting in the back at the refuge, and his attorney tried to explain all of that was because that's what he was taught to do, was to make sure everybody had proper safety with their firearms. They knew how to shoot. They were on proper rotations so the men were getting sleep. He was literally doing everything he was trained to do, and she said because he did those things here, that he is more culpable, that they would not have been able to fortify the refuge the way they did without Ryan Payne, and that his very military training that he received and received honors for is now why he's going to sit in jail longer, because he used that military training at the refuge, which is what our government trained him to do.
Going back to these 91 pages of documents, some people wondered if we knew about these all along or the defendants knew about them all along. Yes, everybody knew. Lots of people knew about these. The defendants definitely knew about the documents. The government chose to seal these documents from day one from the public. They didn't want the public to know about these because there's people in here they're trying to hide that's never been arrested.
Right, and Ryan Payne actually filed a motion in 2016 to suppress this evidence from the trial if he went to trial, and he did not win that motion. So this information has been out there. It's not like what we just learned was completely groundbreaking information. The important things that came out of it ultimately is that there was a lot of informants that were trying to sabotage Ryan Payne and really capitalize on his military training to make him to appear scary so that they could paint the narrative that they wanted, which was that this is a scary armed military operation, when in fact wasn't. And nothing that was said in the 91-page document was carried out. None of it was translated to Ammon Bundy and acted upon. So nothing that they discussed in these documents actually came to fruition, but it allowed the media to demonize these people and to say, look, this is how scary they really are.
And they used it against him today in court.
Oh, yeah.
All these words that never made it into court against nobody, these words of other people made it into court today. And yes, I seen someone posted it there. Ryan Payne was sentenced today to 37 months in prison, yet to be the longest one in any of the defendants in this case. 37 months, 3 years supervised probation after he is released in Montana, a $10,000 fine, also another $100 some kind of court fee that's due immediately, or he'll be taken out of his commissary once he gets into prison. We don't know his location, where he's going to be being sent to right now. It's just a lot to figure out, but 37 months in prison. He has approximately 25 months already served, if my calculation is right. So it leaves him about 12 months left, something like that.
I thought it was interesting that she used against him that he tried to withdraw his plea, and then later on used it against him that he pled guilty. Just about 6 weeks before the trial, he tried to pull his plea before he even knew what the outcome for Ammon Bundy's group was going to be. He wanted to go to trial with them, and that was denied. She used that against him verbally, although she still gave him the 3 points for acceptance. She verbally used that against him, saying that he clearly is not taking full responsibility for what he did. But then later on said, I'm sorry that they were acquitted at trial. It was your choice to plead guilty. If you had gone to trial with them, perhaps your outcome would have been different. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you do in these courtrooms. He took full responsibility for what he did. On January 26th, when they were ambushed, he got out of the car immediately, surrendered himself into the custody of the FBI at that time. He has given no problems to the courts in 2 years of sitting in these horrible jails that are not prisons. They are jails that are meant for temporary residence, not for a 2-year residency here. He has complied with all court orders. The only thing he didn't do that she said he knew he was not supposed to do is that he went to the Bundy Ranch. And she went, I mean, in the end, it was literally that made her
Took
say...
pictures, smiled. It just looked like he was giving the nose to the federal government.
She said, clearly you were too busy celebrating and flipping your nose up at the federal government to realize that you shouldn't have been there in the first place if you truly are sorry for what you did. After 2 hours of the psychologist of another witness who Ryan helped get on as an electrician, who gave a great character reference to, countless letters that were sent in, all kinds of testimony proving that Ryan Payne has never been a threat to the public. He has no criminal record before this, and at the end she said, I'm hearing everything you're saying, but those pictures were still taken in Bunkerville after the verdict, or after the dismissal of the charges, and it looked like you were too busy celebrating to really be remorseful about what you did at the refuge. Pictures.
And she brought up that it's still not over in Nevada.
Yeah.
That the federal government still wants another chance at even you, Ryan Payne, Bundy, Ryan Bundy, and Cliven Bundy, that the federal government still may retry you. That's a decision yet that...
she said it could still be appealed, and for all we know, they're not done with you yet in the state of Nevada. She made it very clear that they didn't get an acquittal, so for all of us out there who at different times have been saying, you know, this is good, and we've heard Cliven Bundy say, well, it's good, but at the same time, I wanted an acquittal. I wanted to go before a jury of my peers. I wanted the evidence in the Wooten email and the evidence against Steve Myrie, the evidence against all those who were involved in this conspiracy against the Bundys. He wanted the information to come out. This was proven in court today that Cliven Bundy is correct because she made it very clear he did not receive an acquittal, that the charges were dropped because of discovery violations.
I want to make a couple of statements here that I read off, and one, the judge and the prosecutors brought this up. The Patriot community at large needs to see this as a statement to them that you cannot take over a federal refuge. You cannot stand up against your federal government. You cannot protect the Hammonds. You cannot do these things. The judge even made this statement that this needs to be made a sentence that will shock the minds of the people that they will not stand up against the federal government. She said, without Payne, I don't believe that they could have taken over the refuge. So she believed without Payne that they couldn't do it. There's no documents ever that Payne ever planned on taking the refuge himself.
He didn't even ever do the call to actions telling people to come. Literally, it was all this behind the scenes work with Operation Mutual Defense and all of these recordings, which his attorney tried to make the point that this is all protected under his First Amendment right. That it was literally just guys talking. There was no true planning that was done. There was no strategies that they were bringing forth to actually carry this stuff out. This should all be protected under the First Amendment, and instead it's being used against him. Instead of his actions at the refuge being used, she's trying to base his need for 37 months in jail based on words that he had with a group of guys, many of which were informants, triggering him to discuss the things he did. When he went to Ammon Bundy and spoke to the others, they quickly put all of their minds at ease that this would not be happening. We're not taking any form of force against anybody. If the Hammonds don't want help, we're not going to go and truly take the Hammonds over and all of that. So none of that was taken into consideration. But all of these phone calls that were put not even out to the public, which his attorney tried to state, this was put into a Dropbox that didn't even need to still exist. It didn't get put out. It was a private Dropbox. Why was it there? Why was it allowed to be later given over to the courts? It was private. He didn't post it publicly and tell people to come, and yet he received 2 years longer than even that of John Ritzheimer, who was in the pictures also, was seen as a leader, did calls to actions. Jason Patrick was the longest sentence at 21 months. This is just absolutely ludicrous that we are prosecuting him more harshly because of his military service and because of the training he was able to do at the refuge. So when we say things like support our troops by telling them ahead of time, if you go and become a trained killer, when you get home, you will be seen as a murderer. Your government will treat you as such. They will use you to, as Ryan Payne said today in his testimony, that was conveyed through the counselor, that they used him to destroy cities, to kill families, and he saw what he did, and he came home to repent of that, and now he is literally being persecuted more harshly because they know what he's capable of, because they created him. So if you want to support our troops, you tell them ahead of time what they're getting into, because they're going to come home and have what he has, which the counselor said was moral wounds, there was a statement they made that I thought was important on if you go ahead and you become moral injury, that he came home with moral injury because he realized that what he thought he was doing in Iraq, he wasn't really doing. He thought he was protecting the American people, and all he was doing was killing people, and he came home with moral wounds that he now had to deal with.
It was very obvious the day the judge brought up the not guilty verdicts of the other defendants. It was very obvious that she was holding that against Ryan Payne. Very obvious she was holding all these words of other people that have never been arrested against Ryan Payne. And that's why ultimately today she gave him the harshest sentence yet, as we said a while ago. 37 months in prison to continue serving it from this point on. We don't know where he's going to be transferred to, but they're going to try to find an appropriate prison. He's going to get 3 years supervised probation. Absolutely no contact with any of the defendants at all, any of them in any of the cases. From
Oregon, Nevada, as well as any members on Operation Mutual Defense, anybody who was named in those phone calls.
No contact for the next probably 4 years or more till his probation is totally over with.
Yeah,
so no contact, absolutely at all. $10,000 restitution, $100 that has to be paid immediately as another fee that was assessed today. But that's the update.
His attorney kicked complete butt in there. She was good. She was relentless, and she went on and on and on and on, helping the judge to see that this man has already served a 24-month sentence. And also just helping the courts and the public. And I hope we can get a hold of these transcripts and put them out there, because there was a lot of really good information that helps us to understand the minds of these people. And the attorney tried to get the judge to see that the best thing she can do for the public is to, one, show that she has a sense of mercy, and two, also show that when you take responsibility for your actions, that there is a payoff for it. When you get out of the car instead of driving off and you surrender, when you spend 2 years at these jails and you cause no problems and you conduct yourself in a respectable manner before the court, that there would be some form of a payoff at the end. And instead, because of his military service, and I believe his military service is the only thing that allowed him to even have the conversations he had in the 91-page document. So essentially, because of his military service, he's going to spend 37 months in custody. This is absolute injustice. I felt like screaming treason in that courtroom. And quite frankly, I wanted to ask the judge at the end, how do you think you've just motivated us as the American people to have any sense of justice in your courtroom when you do this? How can you give him 37 months? He apologized to the court. He apologized for what he was doing, and he said he really believed he was just continuing on his service in his military code of ethics to defend the Constitution and to protect the American people.
It shows you right here that it doesn't matter if you apologize or you defy the judge. Every one of these defendants still got their time served. Jake Ryan defied the judge in his motion, and he only got 1 year and 1 day. Ryan Payne today did everything in his power to apologize. He's done everything from turning himself in at the roadblock. He didn't run. He was the first one arrested peacefully, and even with a weapon, and never pulled a gun or nothing. That was even brought up in court. But still, it didn't matter what you say in this court, whether you comply to every single thing they say or you defy them, you are still given more time than deserved in any of this situation.
The counselor, the psychologist, also said that keeping him in solitary, away from his family and away from his community, was actually only doing him more harm. And that he is such a reflective individual that he has spent the last 2 years really trying to understand who he is and why he's done the things that he's done, and to try to grasp the depths of healing he needs from going and serving in the military. And the psychologist said very clearly, there is no more time served that is going to change his mind or help him in any way. In fact, it could only fracture things, both with keeping him away from his fiance, his children, his family, his employment, that at this point it really would not be a sense of justice to do that. Every single opinion in that court was that Ryan Payne has served his time, he has served his country. She said over and over that his prior service in Iraq was not going to be taken into consideration to overshadow things like going to Bunkerville and taking a picture with Ammon Bundy and John Ritzheimer. I mean, literally being left in Iraq for 24 hours under constant fire, and then murdering people when your government tells you to, getting medals, coming back home, and all of a sudden none of that matters because you took a picture. You're trained to undermine the government in these other countries. Our military is trained to undermine the government, to murder people. And here, he took a picture with Ammon Bundy and John Ritzheimer, and now he needs another year in jail because of it. This is disgusting, America.
It definitely is. Please join us again tonight. I think we're having a live stream with Ammon Bundy, hopefully discussing these 91-page documents. That's the ideal of the conversation. We'll try to take maybe some questions from the public at that time to see what we have. Other than that, we're down here in Portland, Oregon. We have several other. I know that Joe O'Shaughnessy has a hearing here on the 15th in this same courthouse. He is one of the last defendants that will be sentenced here. Let's hope things go good for him. Show up here and support if you're here in Portland. There's a lot of other cases going on around the United States. I get calls every day about these different cases from Tennessee, Baby Holmes case in Alabama. Bruce Doucette is another guy. I don't know a lot about his case. I've been trying to follow it as much as I can, but to be charged with the charges some of these guys have been are so wrong. If it was a crime, it doesn't fit the crime that they're being charged with. 3 people have been sentenced down there in Colorado so far, between 22 to 40 years apiece, and just filing papers and stuff, trying to hold their government accountable for what they're doing wrong. Bruce Doucette is in trial right now. Jury selection started yesterday there in Denver, Colorado. Today it's continuing jury selection. This case is supposed to last 2 to 3 weeks long down there. If anybody's in Denver, Colorado, I challenge you to go in that courtroom, witness what's going on. Come out and tell us what's going on. Don't take our word for it or someone else's word. Go in there and sit there yourself and see the injustice that's happened. Then tell us if it's fair. Because other than that, just us telling you doesn't give it justice. When we're sitting in there, it's literally upsetting. It's wrong what they're doing, how they're twisting people's words around and using other people's words against you. It's just totally wrong.
The most heartbreaking thing for me was to sit there and look at the flag behind Judge Anna Brown. Look at her sitting up on her pedestal. Look at the prosecution with their probably $2,000 suits on, sitting there picking this man apart, looking at the defense attorney and then looking at Ryan Payne and hearing an hour of testimony in detail of his life and his service to this country and the things that he endured for our freedom. And here he sits in this courtroom now and is being absolutely persecuted and seen as a dangerous threat to the public. It was far beyond, it goes far beyond anything you can imagine when you're trying to grasp how absolutely screwed up our system and our country is. And you hear a military veteran saying, what I did in Iraq was wrong. And I tried to defend the Hammonds and protect life because what you guys made me do is wrong. And then to see him walk away in shackles. Who is the criminal? Who is the criminal? The ones who sent him out to kill people? Or him coming back to the United States and trying to defend life, liberty, and property?
Where are we losing our liberties? Are we losing it here in this country, or are we losing it in another country? That is the big question. I'll leave that with you guys to figure out on your own. Where do we stand here? What do we do? We can keep bringing it to you and telling these atrocities that are happening in these courts, but unless you come and witness it for yourself, we can't even touch on what's happening in these courts. You need to come here and witness it yourself. I met hundreds of people the last 2 years in these court systems from Portland here in Nevada that came for one day and couldn't believe what was going on. We would tell them every single day on these live streams, You need to come and witness it for yourself. Pick a courtroom. You don't have to come to Portland. There's one in your town somewhere or in your state that's near you. Pick a courtroom. Go in, listen to someone else's case, and judge it for yourself. Let the world know these things are happening and these injustices are happening in these courtrooms.
And then decide for yourself who the real criminals are and who the real threats to our liberties and our freedom are. Our founding fathers said those who will trade freedom, or those who will trade liberty for, I'm gonna mess it up, those who will trade freedom for safety deserve neither. They deserve neither. We become so afraid of our neighbor and of ourselves that we think we have to walk around in shackles so that some other government figure can tell us what is right and what is wrong. How about we put God back as our sovereign leader? How about God becomes the one who guides us instead of the government and the judge and the laws? How about we try loving our neighbors and loving God? Maybe that would be enough, and we could quit submitting to a tyrannical government that really wants to murder and kill and destroy us, and learn what it means to take self-governance into account and start thinking what that would actually look like.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. That's all we have for today. We will be back this evening with some more, and hopefully joining Am Bundy in discussing some more of these 91 pages and maybe what happened today and what's going to happen here in the future with some of this stuff.
One last thing is that Ryan Payne's attorney from Nevada, Ryan Norwood, came, and I just want to say thank you to him for coming, because his team stuck so close to him in Nevada and believed in him that he took a flight here and made sure to be here for his sentencing today, and I commend him for that, and for his entire legal team here who has believed in him and has fought tooth and nail against the system for him, and they feel tremendous remorse for what we as a country are doing to our veterans. It is disgusting. Let's support our troops by telling them not to go, and then let's support the veterans who come back completely screwed up and start giving them maybe some of the benefits that these elite elected officials and judges and U.S. Marshals are receiving in the federal court system. So that's it. God bless you guys. We'll see you tonight, 7:30.
Be like Jason Patrick. Just say no.
Just say no.